Hi, this is Jacqueline Smith, and this is 3 a.m. Conversations. So I am here with the lovely Bernadette Frazier. Say hello.
Hello.
To the people.
Hello, hello.
So, Bernadette and I met under very toxic conditions. We met at our mutual place of work. I'm no longer there. We're not going to say the company name because Bernadette is still there. But probably by the time this airs, she'll have a new home.
Amen. Amen. Yes, indeed. Put it out there. Put it out there.
But, that lends to deeper discussion about knowing when to leave toxicity, toxic places, and knowing how to set proper boundaries, whether that be at work, at home, in friendships, in family dynamics. So before pressing record, Bernadette and I were just discussing how her boundary is the use of her cell phone. So you want to go a little bit deeper into that and why that boundary is so important to you?
Yeah, so I most of the time on weekends, and really this was actually something my therapist suggested years ago, that now that I'm not necessarily needing to put my phone, like lock it away, I still continue that practice because it's a protection of my peace. And so one of the things that I do even today is every weekend I will unplug, and sometimes it's for longer than others. And it started as like, oh, I'm gonna unplug starting at 5 p.m. Sunday because, there's the whole thing about Sunday scaries and people getting ready to go back to work. And so I just really needed to carve out a space for me to be essentially unavailable. And it sounds awful to some, but really it's a protection measure because I'm very much an empath and connect very deeply with the people in my life, and so I oftentimes can take on like whatever they're feeling, which would then end up leaving me depleted. So it's not to say that I'm not there for my friends and my family. However, a lot of times it's been long enough now that people just know if I call her, she doesn't answer, okay, the phone's in the drawer or the phone is on the nightstand and I'm out living and, being present as much as possible for myself.
So you mentioned several things that I want to delve into, but more specifically, people may not know what it means to be an empath. And it really needs to be defined more clearly, and so that people can understand and maybe they'll recognize if they have an empathetic output to others. So do you want to discuss that a little bit more?
Yeah, so this was actually something before I even knew what it was. And my family would oftentimes categorize me as being soft-hearted as I was growing up. And I just never really, on one hand, I was just kind of like, what does that mean? Are you saying I'm a punk? Like, what does that mean? And so it took, like growing up and experiencing different things and understanding, if I'm sitting there talking with someone, it doesn't even have to be someone I'm close to. Actually, I can have a conversation with someone on the job or someone that I don't know very well. And if they disclose something, I can feel the emotion that they are either displaying or that they are describing. If I'm talking with someone who experienced a tough time, it's almost like this wave of emotion that I can feel, but that also transfers to joy as well.
Yes.
So it's not always a bad thing, but it's just very hard because as the old folks put it in the Black community, my soft-hearted nature was really just my sensitivity to others and their emotions and how they are feeling. And sometimes it's even nonverbal at times.
Absolutely.
I was driving the other day, and sometimes certain people just resonate with you. I don't know if it's a look, or if they make you recall some feeling or emotion. But I was actually at a traffic light, and how often do we see homeless people?
Yes.
But this particular day, there was a man standing there, and I just started bawling. Wow. In my car. I don't know this man. I had never seen. It's not like, oh, I see him every day. No, I had never seen him before. But that was just the emotion that I felt at the time, by looking at him as he, was trying to get money for food. And so, yeah, it's a lot of things. But I think that's the important thing, is that it doesn't always have to be verbal. It is an energy and a sensitivity
that everybody radiates. And I think the importance of recognizing that you're an empath is, like you said, knowing when to shut down and protect that, because it is physically draining for those of you out there that can resonate with what we're saying. I consider myself an empath as well. That's probably why you and I connected so well. Yes. I consider myself an empath as well. And I think for me, oftentimes, I consider myself very social, very outgoing. But there are times where I need to just be isolated into myself with my own thoughts and being protective of my energy and space, because what happens is, just like you mentioned, it's everywhere and with everyone. Everyone resonates a certain type of energy, and you can feel it, and it's all encompassing. It's very physical.
Yes.
And it takes a toll on your body, which is why it is so important to sever toxicity and toxic relationships, toxic people out of your life, because it drains your energy.
Or even just like, I have yelled to the other room because my husband had the news on, because he would get up in the morning, and as he's doing whatever he's doing in the kitchen, he would just turn the news on out of habit. He calls it, put it on in the background, and I had to scream at him to turn it off. I wasn't even in the room, but just hearing what they were reporting and things like that, I was like, I can't do it. So even watching the news, which at this point has been all about ratings. It's all about like selling the story. I think I heard somewhere that it said, if it bleeds, it leads, in terms of a content perspective. And so that's what the news is all about. So I can't look at it. I can't hear it because it's upsetting.
And that's precisely why I don't watch the news either. So if anything, if it's, and it's not to say that I don't want to be a well-informed citizen, but if it's a matter of editing what you receive. It's a matter of being very precise, very direct with saying, hey, I'm taking control of this and what I receive, because it's true. What you watch, what you hear, what you feel, these are all things that can really leech onto your spirit.
Yeah, you're exposing yourself to these things, and it's almost like being open to those things. Because sometimes you might say, oh, well, I'm just passively. No, you are taking that in a greater capacity than you might think. And the subconscious, as we all, get ready to wind down or lay down at night, that subconscious kicks in, and that's where, some of those things, and you're like, well, why am I thinking about this? Because, something that was meant to be passive has actually imprinted on you in a way.
And it's not to say you can't shake it.
Right.
But in the time being, in that moment, you are feeling this anxiety and this pressure that didn't need to be there if you would have guarded yourself a little bit more.
Yeah.
So that lends me to this topic of, what are some of like your defense mechanisms for this? Because it's like, it's something innate. This I don't know where this came from.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like let's go into this actually. my family has these abilities. Call it clairvoyant. What is it? Clairaudient. You can see, you can hear, but they are gifted in that way. With my younger sister, she dreams of certain occurrences of things that have yet to happen. With me, it's very I'm like I said before, I'm an empath, but I can also pick up things from photos.
Yeah.
Just by visualizing. I don't need to see or hear you actually speak, but I can literally just see an image of you and say, yay, this person is good, stay away from this person. And it's very like, it's innate.
Wow.
Almost.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that? Has anyone else in your family ever come to you to say that they can see, hear, or feel things?
You know, it's funny because it's something that, again, sometimes, you know, you hear things like that and you don't pay attention to it. You know, there's the doubters or, you know, people who don't believe in that. And I was neither. I was pretty neutral on it for the most part until things started happening. And I started to say, is that why I kind of felt, you know, I have not been able to pinpoint it. And I actually had a conversation with one of my aunts about it, you know, and just asked, because that had not been anything that had come up in the family before, really. But sometimes it's a feeling, like you said. We moved, just to give you an example, so we moved into a home. This was years ago, and not the home that we occupy today, but we moved, and it was one of those things where I was young. I was only 24 when my husband and I bought our first home, and I kind of had doubts about the home, where I was kind of like, I don't know. And we had even put the money down, like the process had started, it was rolling.
And as a real estate agent, y'all, it's like once you put the money down,
it's on.
You are committed. Yes.
And so, you know, but even then I kept saying, I don't know, there's just something, I'm not sure. And I went back and forth on it. And, you know, my husband was like, you're just scared, it's a big decision, you know, and trying to be the voice of reason. Like there was no malice in him, you know, trying to quote unquote like push me into it. But when we moved in, I was sick. I was physically ill the day we moved in. And I sat there, and I hadn't been sick before. I hadn't, you know, it was nothing, I couldn't attribute it to anything, but I was physically ill. And moving boxes, the last moving box came in, and then it was just like a wave of feeling sick. And what ended up happening was the time in that home was very short-lived, because I was so unsettled there. I never felt settled. I never felt comfortable. And come to find out, like, that neighborhood is, you know, it's still around, but it ended up falling through. It was kind of like one of those supposed to be master plan communities that ended up, you know, not completing or not continuing as planned. And so, yeah, it was people around us were moving in, and as soon as they were moving in, they were moving out, and there was like issues with the builder quality and things like that. And so even though I couldn't pinpoint, I'm like, I don't know why I don't want to move there. I just don't, you know. And then, you know, to feel like, oh, well, maybe he's right. Maybe it's just, you know, it's a big decision. You know, I'm young. My parents weren't involved in it, you know, to so say, like, be a guiding hand. And so it's kind of hard to make that kind of decision at that age. But yeah. And so since then, there have been other incidents similar to that where I'll say, I walked in here and I don't feel very well about this space, you know. And to your point, part of that is probably the empath in me picking up on something, but I'm just not able to pinpoint it. So yeah, it's something that I haven't actually learned how to navigate, but I do feel like I can have a little bit of foresight, you know, into things before they happen.
And I think it also provides like a comfort and a confidence within yourself with whatever your gut is telling you. typically, not to say that we are sitting here with any special powers.
Right.
We've already, even though as black women, we already are our own independent superheroes in our everyday lives. But that's not to say that what we are experiencing may be on a heightened level. We're just a little bit more sensitive to it, but everyone has a gut instinct. And I honestly think it's just a matter of developing it and trusting your gut. When it's time to move, it's time to move. If you get this instinct or gut feeling that I shouldn't go out tonight, I shouldn't take this drive, I shouldn't, go out on this date. And honestly, that is there was one instance where I did not trust my gut, and I ended up being sexually assaulted.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And my gut told me to run, to get out of his car once he left and just run. But because I didn't know where I was, and because at that time I did not have, a cell phone on me, it lended me to end up in a situation that I ended up being sexually assaulted. And so, women out there, this is your gut instinct. Like, that is a gift from God. It's your personal inner navigation. It's your compass. It's your lie detector. It's your overall detector of, is this situation something that I feel comfortable in?
Yeah.
And if not, you have to go.
Yeah, it's that discernment that most of us are looking for anyway, and like you said, it's already there inside. You do have to trust it. Or even if you don't know what it is, like how I was, you just don't shut it out and don't doubt it, which is hard to do because I'm also a naturally anxious person. Like, I have anxiety, and so the second guessing is constant, right? And so you do have to kind of like walk that fine line of saying, like, is this the fear talking, or is this really, am I being led to make a different choice?
I think I always call it like my come to Jesus moment. Like, I have been on this path of getting to know God, getting to know myself. And I've come to realize that anxiety, fear, being lack of self-confidence, those are all are devices of the devil. Because what I've learned is that once you clear, because all of those things clear your head, thoughts of things that did not happen,
right,
that you're concerned about, but it's like you're concerned about things that probably won't happen.
Exactly.
But they cloud your judgment, crowd your mind, and you're unable to think properly.
Right.
So I realized that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these little things that you think are just natural to human nature are really just potholes in your life that are set up to entrap you in this certain mindset. And I think once I found that out, once I realized that, this overwhelming sense of peace and happiness came into my life.
Yeah.
When you are able to let go of those thoughts, the path appears.
Right. Yeah, that's so true. And the other thing too, it can also be, I think it's also a learned behavior, where as you age and you get older, you know, you have different experiences. You're exposed to different things that are traumatic. Or you either, like, I grew up in an anxious home. And so, you know, my mom had anxiety. And I find myself having similar anxieties to her, and it was the very thing that I didn't really understand as a child. But then as you get older, and like I said, you have these different life experiences, you draw back to either something you've seen before, or, you know, it's like that comfortable dysfunction that, you know, because that's the thing, when you're anxious, it's comfortable. If you are used to being anxious, right, you are more comfortable there.
Right.
You're more comfortable there than you are being at peace. Not because peace is not good, but just because it's unfamiliar. And then you start to think, oh, well, this is all great, but something bad's going to happen. You know, and then you start waiting for the shoe to drop.
Right.
You know, but my therapist said something. She was just like, well, instead of waiting for the shoe to drop, just know that it will. Because that's life. And you don't have to anticipate, like, is the shoe going to drop? You know, and the shoe could drop doesn't necessarily mean that it's something traumatic. It could be, you know, something small or something big.
Or a minor pivot.
Right.
But to that point, and something that gave me great comfort, and something that I read in the Bible recently, it says, God holds the future. And to me, I was like, oh, that is so plain and so simple, yet so profound, because it's like, that's his concern.
Exactly.
That's none of our concern.
Right.
What happens down the line. That is why we say the present is a gift. This is all we need to be focused on at this very point in time.
Yeah.
Nothing else that is yet to happen we can control.
Right, exactly.
We can control. So it's almost like, you know, going back to what your therapist said, it's like, don't even be concerned about the shoe. Don't you know, well, don't even.
And I think that was her point, to just say, instead of anticipating that the shoe will drop, okay, it will, and then what? You're going to continue on, and you're going to navigate through that just like you've navigated through all the other trials that you've experienced.
But I think for me, it's like, it's still that anticipation, like something is going to happen, where it's like, why even think in that vein?
Yeah. Why
even go down that route where you can just be like, I'm concerned about how I'm feeling at this very moment in time. And if at this time I'm feeling sad, anxious, whatever it is, let's talk about that right now in this moment. If I am happy to get up in the morning, get my breakfast, sit down at my computer and go to work and be focused on that, it's like taking things as they come.
Right.
And I think that is easier said than done. I think.
Of course. Of course. All of this is, you know, all of it is. It's, you know, because, you know, even going back to what we talked about with my cell phone, for a while, even though at the time when I put it in the drawer, because I had to put it like out of sight, I would sneak in there and look at it and check it. But what if somebody, you know, but what if they called and said, until I had to just be like, just stop it. Because the whole point of this is to create peace. Now you're just compounding.
Yes.
You know, the situation. It's almost just like, just keep it out then. If you're going to keep going back and checking, you know, so it's even having to be disciplined to, you know, have the knowledge, you know, in the scripture that you read, and saying, okay, this is knowledge here, right? God controls the future. And it's almost like you have to repeat that until you, until it becomes natural.
Yes.
And then you stop checking the phone, because you've relinquished the control of saying, well, I need to check because what if? No, it's no what if.
It's no what if.
Yeah.
If it happens, like your therapist said, in that moment, you'll deal with it.
Exactly.
But the peace is knowing God holds the future, and that is not your burden, your cross to bear.
Right.
It's Him.
Right.
And I think for this day and age where our cell phones and our work and, you know, our attachment to technology is running our lives, it's important to step away from that and understand, like, these things may be highlighting anxious thoughts.
Absolutely. It's, you know, and part of it being easier, maybe a little bit easier for me, is because I'm not on social media really.
And guys, I would just have to say, this is very interesting. Bernadette she works as a full-time social media director. Like, that's what she does, PR, communications. But she knows, I'll let you explain this, but you...
Yeah, I mean, it's not getting sucked into the vortex, right? Because you start to think that these things are important to you. When you really step away from it and you ask yourself what is important to you, it's none of the things that you're actually consuming, right? So this even goes back to, what are we exposing ourselves to? Now, everybody on social media is not bad. That is not what I'm saying, you know, and I think that it is a way of outreach to people who need to hear something that they've never heard. It's a way to connect people. So it's not that it's bad, but I think the people who are oftentimes not trusting that God holds the future and are trying to project something, unfortunately, that is what ends up taking over the majority of social media. And so I found myself at one point, I was one of those people who would just scroll. Like, I never posted because I was just like, I don't have anything to say.
Profound to say.
Right. You know, I was just like, what am I contributing to this?
Correct.
You know, and then it's like, well, if I'm not posting, but this person's posting, should I be posting? I'm like, no, I'm creating anxiety where there is none, where there doesn't need to be. And so, and that's just for my personality, you know, and my, you know, what I was trying to, you know, have control over. You know, it's like, I remember hearing this thing, control your controllables. Well, I can control how much time I'm spending on social media, like scrolling mindlessly or endlessly, exposing myself to things, and then walking away from it with this list of things that I've now deemed as important just because I've seen them, not because that's what's inside me. Right. And so now, and especially because there's the influencer culture and things like that, things that I actually lean on for my job. And because of that, I'm like, I don't want to be influenced, because not all influencing is good. And it doesn't mean that it's malicious, but it just means that it can take your attention and make you focus on things, creating problems that aren't really there, that don't really exist. And so, but that's part of detaching. It's, you know, limiting your exposure to things that can cause more anxiety than what you actually have. And you get to focus on the things that, what's really important to me? What do I actually even want? Where do I actually want to go on vacation? And not because I saw somebody go to this place, or I saw that someone has this, or I saw that someone's in this place in their career. What am I doing with my career? No. We, most of the time, like, we're our own worst critics already.
Absolutely.
I don't need any help influencing me to do this, that, or anything else. So it's, you know, that's how I choose, you know, to protect myself in that way.
No, I think, you know, your sentiment on social media is my exact one as well. With Facebook, with Instagram, I was actually begged by my friends and family to have one or the other, just as a way of keeping in contact. But I have a cell phone.
Right. That's my thing. You know, I said to myself, the connections that I have in my life actually improved when I got off social media. If you want to talk to me, you got to pick up the phone. Oh my gosh. Just as long as it's not on Sunday when it's in the drawer. But but it's like, you have to seek more meaningful relationships, and you have to nurture more meaningful relationships, because it's crazy how you can feel close to someone because you connect with them on social, but then you get in a room together and it's like,
and you don't speak,
and you don't have anything to say.
And how many times, and I know that there are people out there that have friends, quote unquote, I'm putting up the air quote fingers, that have friends on social media, but when you meet them in the same room, you wouldn't even glance at them, say hello, or exchange any words.
Or you feel like strangers.
Yes. And you feel like, I don't know if it's a sort of comfort to have that connection on Instagram. Oh, girl, we're about to go deep into this. We're about to go deep into this because, there's so many things I want to talk about in this subject matter as it regards to dating as well. And the disconnect that we now have in the dating world with the social media thing. Yes. But going back to what you said about posting, and for me, the reason why I am a little bit more guarded and don't post as often as others is because the question that goes in my mind is, what am I contributing? Am I contributing information, or am I just contributing something because I want to get adoration or likes or something like that? It's like, what is the point of me posting something? And I always felt like social media, it's a powerful tool, but if it's in the wrong hands, it can be completely detrimental. And we're starting to see the effects of that today with dating. So we got to get to this.
Yes.
Because that situation of people not being able to pick up the phone and talk over the phone has really it's sent me for a loop, because I'm a person that loves to talk on the phone. I am the person, like, back in the day, I remember my first crush. We used to talk on the phone until we fell asleep.
Oh, that was the thing to do.
That was the
thing to do. And it's so sad that people will never get to have experienced that. I mean, because how close did you feel to that boyfriend? We fell asleep together, girl.
But it's like, but what do we have to talk about at 12 years old?
Exactly.
That we can talk about so many things at 36.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Than we could at 12.
Right.
Like, where did the breakdown come? Where did it start? Can we end it? Or is this going to be like a perpetual problem that we're going to have in the future?
And I think that's so interesting because, to your point, like, people can be close as ever online, but in the same room and not know how to talk to each other. And I think it's because I'm that friend. I am that annoying friend when I'm spending time with my friends, with my family. And if I see people on their phones, you will get called out. Hello, I am sitting right here. If there's something that you need to get to or do, then, please, by all means. But why are you sitting in a room of people and everybody's on their phone?
It makes no sense.
So then we don't know how to communicate with each other. I get the joke because people don't talk on the phone much anymore, but I talk to my friends. You might not call me, but I'm going to call you, because we can text only so much. And it just, you feel more connected. And I think that there's something about connecting to someone verbally that I think I even read somewhere that it increases like oxytocin, like those feel good feelings in the brain.
Even a hug. Even human touch. Yeah.
Like human touch. But if you can't get that, what was everyone trying to do during the pandemic? Everybody was all about video calls and, all these things. And why? It's because we are officially disconnected. We can't congregate in these spaces together, even if we're just sitting together to be on our phone. But we're not doing that, And so to need to feel connected, it took a phone call, not a text. It took an actual phone call. I need to hear your voice. I need to hear how you sound.
Yes.
You need to hear how I sound. because if you're really checking on someone because you really want to know how they're doing, somebody could fake it through a text.
Very much so.
They can't fake it vocally. If I'm down, I could text you, hi, LOL, and just be just as sad as, whatever. But you wouldn't know that until you actually pick up the phone. And so, and part of that is my own undoing, because I do consider myself like a keeper in terms of like my friendships and stuff. I'm always like trying to check on my circle, but like, so much of that is lost. And to your point with dating, even more so. And even,
it's painful.
and it's unfortunate, because it's like, I want to know how you feel about me verbally. Don't send me a text and say,
and a
whatever.
Heart emoji is not, it doesn't cut it.
It doesn't. It does not.
It's cute, but it doesn't, you're not emoting
right
anything through an emoji. And I want to hear those I love yous, or that I care about you from your, and I think, as empaths, we'll know if they're lying or not. And I think that's probably why we would want it verbalized, because we want to hear whether or not you're being sincere. And I just think that that's why some of these relationships are, what are they? I read this, Instagram. Someone said the dating pool has pee in it. And yeah, it does. Because we have subjected ourselves to online dating. Child, that's another route that we can go on down. I had to rid myself of online dating. I don't do it anymore, because to me, it felt fake and forced. This is not how I would naturally want to meet someone.
Right.
And then again, you're just using another outlet to text and communicate.
It's a barrier.
It's a barrier to really like seeing someone in person, catching all those feels, and really seeing if you guys have a connection off the bat. Just physically being in each other's presence. And no shade to anybody that has found their partners on social media. It's just for all of those who, I'm speaking for the men and women who just don't feel like that avenue is for them. But that seems to be what the mainstream thing is these days. But,
and it used to be so taboo. It
yes.
used to be so taboo. Oh, we met in real life. We didn't meet online. And now it's just becoming more and more
common.
You know, common. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with that. But that doesn't work for everybody. And I mean, and I honestly think it's because we are so attached to our phones. You know, I call them oftentimes like this is a tool of like mind control in a sense, because you can hide behind it. And even so, because like even
highlight that, you can hide behind your phones.
Mm-hmm.
It's a blankie. It's your security blanket.
It is. And it's like, okay, well, if we're both at work and we're trying to text or say something, that's different. You know, but I even said to my husband, I'm like, if we had a disagreement, don't apologize to me through this text. You call me, or we can talk about it, you know, like when you get home. Because, and even for him, like it was just natural because we're on our phones so much. Oh, well, I can just instantly tell her I'm sorry. And it's like, yeah, you could, but you could also pick up the phone and say it.
It's more effort.
It's more effort. And that's why I'm saying, you know, even being off of social media, my relationships, my friends, you know, you have to talk to me to nurture that relationship. Or either there isn't one. You know, like that the text will only get you so far. So
say that again for the people in the back. Textual I don't even know if that's a word. Textual relationships. It can only go so far. Because then, like you said, it's a security mechanism that you're so used to that when you're in person, you have nothing to say.
You don't. Or you don't know how to say it.
And you don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
Oh. There needs to be a class on this.
It really does. And, you know, to that point, I feel like I have so much emphasis on this because a lot of my friends live in other cities and things like that. So it's not like we're going to hang out every weekend. This is the only way that we can actually stay connected.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to put that effort in. And so now, you know, it also has taught me, like, who's actually my friend? Who cares if I got off of social media? How much harder is it to send me a text? Or even a voice memo now, because we do that a lot too. We do that a lot too, especially, you know, because stuff be going on at work. You got to vent sometimes, so like, let me send you these voice notes. And that's okay. You know, there's nothing wrong with evolving with the times, but it just can't be the only mode in which you communicate.
It cannot take over what is innate to us.
Or replace.
Yes. Yeah. It cannot replace what our instinctually we need as human beings, mm-hmm. which is an embrace, mm-hmm. communication, love and affection, attention. That is what we are all craving. And we think that social media or these phones is going to help us get to that point faster, because that's what we depend on technology to do, mm-hmm. accelerate things that already exist in our life and provide quicker solutions. But real, true connection takes time and effort.
Mm-hmm. It should be complementary mm-hmm. to the things that are innate to us, as you put it. Like, we don't have to, you know, this is not a phone bashing or social media bashing, but it's just saying it should not be the primary, you know, tool that we use to communicate with each other. And it could also lead to why, you know, I think we're now more aware about mental health and things like that, but that's why there's so many people struggling, because they're not actually connecting. You could read something and it could resonate with you and it can make you feel good for a moment, but, you know, how else would you feel if you had built a connection with someone and you're going through something and that person actually called to check on you?
Or came over.
You're not answering the phone. So my next step is I'm coming over there.
It's very real. Like, I remember when I lost my mother, there was a point in the night I had trouble sleeping, of course. I had trouble sleeping, and there was one time in the night where I was just like, I called a friend and I was like, "Hey, what are you doing? Can you come over?" I just needed someone there. Mm-hmm. And we didn't even have to talk about the passing. I just wanted someone physically there. Yeah. And we could have chatted through the phone, but it would not have been the same of having someone like actually there. And when she came over, I was so relieved and happy and surprised that, you know, she was like, she heard my voice, mm-hmm. and she heard, like, if I don't go over there, like, this is not gonna be good for her. Yeah. So it's important to have that closeness and that connection with someone other than through the phone. Mm-hmm. It can't be it. Yeah. It just can't be it. And I don't want, you know, I think that's why BayCon coming soon. I think, you know, that is the premise of why I thought about BayCon in the first place. Mm-hmm. I wanted to take people out of the phones and put them in a room and say, talk, connect, embrace,
Yeah.
Like,
And it's so something that lays dormant most of the time, to be put into that space where now you're forced to connect. It's so crazy how easy it then becomes. Because how many conferences do you go to? It's not a room full of silent people.
right.
It's a room full of people who are being brought out of their shell, or being forced into a situation that makes them talk, and they're building connections that oftentimes last beyond the conference. So it's a good gathering of the minds for people to
Our like minds.
our
Because,
like minds,
yes,
yeah, to be put into this situation where it's like, okay, talk.
it's okay.
It's okay.
No, it's
Don't be afraid. This is a place where this sort of thing is embraced, and not necessarily put off as being something that's dated. Because I feel like I hear that a lot of times. Well, that's the old way, and it's like, well, but it's still very necessary.
It's still very valid, because it's like, what's the alternative? What is our world going to look like if we can't even communicate our points or opinions to each other? And then now there's no, like, oh God, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but there's no regulation of it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of information, and people talking. And there was one point in time where I was scrolling through Instagram, and I was just like, everyone's an expert now.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is a finance expert. We can flip houses with $1. It's like all of this information, and like, it's like people have to discern what's real, what's not. We don't. It's not even like a place to say this information is true. It's been researched.
Right.
It's valid. It's everyone spewing their own opinions.
It is.
And it's a scary thing, because you get so wrapped up and caught up in that. If you're not a person that knows how to back away from it, it's like, where do you turn to? And it's almost like the example you mentioned earlier of like, turn off the TV.
Right.
And that's exactly why I have a timer on Instagram right now.
That's good.
I'm only, and sometimes I bypass it a couple of times, only when I'm trying to like create a reel or something. Those things are so gosh darn hard to make. But it's a 15-minute timer.
Yeah.
Like, it's 15-minute intros that I'm allowed to be on Instagram.
Yeah. I mean, and whatever works, it's like whatever works for, creating your own sanity. Like I said, just because I'm not on social I'm not advocating for people to get off, but I'm just saying, you have to be mindful of like where maybe some of your anxieties, or where, if you're comparing yourself, or why do you feel like you should be in such and such place right now? Is that coming from you, or is this a, reaction to, seeing something else that, is happening? And it's kind of like, it's all performative. Like, no one's going to take a picture of themselves on their worst day and post it on Instagram. It's just not real.
It's just not real. It's just not real. But I do want to commend those who have shared their real stories on
absolutely.
Instagram, because that is very commendable to put that out there to the public. But for those who are just, like you said, it's performative, you're perpetrating a fraud, and people cannot discern whether it's real or fake. So it's just going back to how we initially started the conversation with boundaries.
It is all about setting boundaries and being self-aware. And knowing kind of like, there's millions of folks on social and more, and those who have a genuine interest in making others' lives better, unfortunately, it's in the minority. So when you take all of that, you do have to be cognizant of what you actually absorb versus what you just passively scrolling through, and how to purge that, right? And how to make sure that it doesn't end up resurfacing in some unexpected
way. Get a release, and the release is going outside.
It is. You know, there's something to be said. I do not have a green thumb. I joke with everybody, like, my thumb is not just brown because I'm black. I have a brown thumb. I do not have a green thumb at all. But I put my best effort in getting outside and planting things. I'm getting better, though. And so, you know, it's amazing what being outside and, you know, doing something that kind of like occupies your mind other than being entertained by a phone or TV or something like that. Even for a small part of the day. Because I love my shows. But, you know, sometimes like that Saturday rolls around or in the evenings and I'm like, oh, let me go check on my plants. And then I'm out there. It is really a mood boost. It really is.
It really is.
It really is. And it's just right, you know, outside most everyone's door, you know.
And I think, you know, I was talking to a friend earlier about this. Some of you guys, wherever this podcast, you're listening to it and wherever you are in the world, I was telling my friend how me moving to Houston has really changed my moods, partly due to the weather.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Because I never knew how much I love to just go for walks.
Yeah.
Just being out and engaging in nature and just like, even if it's just for 30 minutes, just going out for a walk, really, you know, clearing my mind and looking at birds and trees and all of that.
Yeah,
just
really you didn't think you cared about.
You cared about just looking at all the little things in nature and just being really appreciative of it. And I told her, I was like, because we're East Coast girls, I will always be an East Coast girl, but you know, winter hardens us. because we are in the house for and it gets dark early, and that's time that, you know, we just end up at the end of the day, you just want to go to bed and watch television, and that's it. So that's a little nod to anybody that, you know, if you think the weather and where you live doesn't have an impact on you emotionally and physically, like, think again, because it really, really does. And I would honestly say, since moving here to Houston, I am more active physically and more connected mentally.
That's so good. That's all you need when thinking about, you know, did I make the right choice and I moved? And, you know, if you're thinking about relocating or even just stepping outside your own door, you know, it really does change things. It really does. And you just noted I sleep better if I've been outside, you know, earlier in the day. And like you said, it's not even about being out there all day, just for a couple of minutes. Break it up a little bit, because I'll do that sometimes. I'll go out in the morning, then I might go out again, you know, throughout the day, try to get like a midday walk or something like that. So it, you know, really does have its perks.
It makes all the difference.
And you're healthier because
you're
getting vitamin
happier.
D. You're moving your body. You know, it's good cardiovascular, you know, benefits from that. So you really can't. It doesn't hurt you.
It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt you. If anything else, it doesn't hurt you.
And I know. I can hear people or see people rolling their eyes. Because like I know those winter mornings. I know. I've dealt with them for a number of years. I know those winter mornings and I know those winter nights too. But it's seasonal depression is very real. And so if you feel like that's happening to you, and it's not to say that, hey, change is good.
Yeah.
Think of alternative ways, even if you know, are relegated to the East Coast and you have to be there for friends or family or whatever reason. Just understand that your well-being mentally, excuse me, mentally and physically is paramount. So however you get that time to yourself, just to connect with nature, to reset. That's really what it is. It's a reset. To go outside and connect with nature. Do it. Even if it is just opening your curtains and letting that sun shine.
I was just going to say, sit near a window that gets a lot of sun, and, it's like one of the things that, I challenge myself even to do is like if I'm feeling stuck or in a bad mood or had a difficult conversation, there's no way you're going to go outside and take that walk and come back in the same headspace.
And feel the same way.
There's no way. There is no way.
That part. And I can attest to that. So amen to that. Well, this has been a very all-encompassing conversation about boundaries and anxiety and communication and stepping away from technology to even reconnecting to Mother Earth.
Yeah.
I love it. And I thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
For having this conversation with me today. And we hope to hear from Bernadette soon because we're going to need an update.
And there will be, it's control your controllables. And I'm trying to control this thing here and, make a move to be in a, as to your point earlier, as Black women, we're our own, superheroes, and we try to be that a lot of times in the workplace, and sometimes that means leaving it behind. Even if you are overachieving, like I think most of us are, because we have to be. But
that's another conversation. That's another conversation.
So yes, I'm trying to overachieve and get up out of it.
So, needless to say, there will be a part 2 with Bernadette because we have to find out how she controlled her controllables, where that led us. But we'll leave on this note, and just driving this home is that no matter where you are, no matter what headspace you are in, no matter where you are locally, know that God holds your future, and He's the one really in control. So let go and let God. And on that note, this has been 3 a.m. Conversations, and I'm your host, Jacqueline Smith. Until next time.